Hi everyone. So I've been wanting to do this video for a long time now. Um, I found it hard to do, to be honest, but today I decided today will be the day. It's funny because I've just got back from the hospital. I had a hospital appointment, and it's been a good day. It's funny because I've been trying to work on my mindset. But before I jump into that, I'm gonna start by saying, so basically this video is in follow-up to a post that I did back in July, when I spoke about being sexually abused as a child. The first thing I want to say is a big thanks to everyone who reached out to me. It was really overwhelming. Um, I'll be honest with you, I remember posting the video Thursday night, like early Friday morning, Thursday night, and I cried for most of Friday, most of Saturday. It took a little while for me to kind of get back to feeling um, somewhat like a person and from being so overwhelmed from all the love and support that I received. I did record a series of videos the Friday that I was planning on posting. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't post it, because it was a lot of just raw emotion, and there's nothing wrong with showing your emotions, obviously. Um, uh, and if I did post it, I wouldn't have. It wouldn't. I wouldn't have. It's weird because I'm saying I'm glad I didn't post it, but at the same time, had I posted it, I wouldn't have regretted it because it's how I was feeling. But I feel like right now I'm somewhat better able to kind of like gather my thoughts. I'm hoping. So yeah, I just want to say a big thank you for everyone. I can't put into words like what it meant to me and how it made me feel, and just having the support like from friends that I hadn't spoken to for a long time, for people that I've never met on here. Um, some of the lovely messages I received from like my husband's friends, which obviously I'm friends with them too, but they're his friends, and it's just like it just felt good. It just felt, when you've gone for so long feeling unimportant and like you're a problem, to get messages of support like that, it actually felt really good. So yeah, I just wanted to jump on just to say that. Um, I initially wanted to post a video to talk about how what's happened to me, and I've been wanting to do it for years, and I've never had the courage to do it. So that night I was feeling really low. There was a series of things that happened that led up to that, and I just thought I'm gonna have to rip the band-aid off and just do it. So that's what I did. Um, so yeah, so I keep starting and stopping the video because it's so weird, because I do find it very odd doing this video. I don't know how people do it, where they just sit in front of the cameras and cry. It's weird. But yeah, but I think one of the things I've realized is that I've healed quite a lot from making that post, and I think I wish I had realized or known before, how much just being able to say it out loud and not hiding myself away and feeling like there's something wrong with me, or because there's a lot of blame and there's a lot of feeling ashamed, and just all the shitty feelings and that comes when you experience something like this. And like I've thought about it so many times to make the video, and I never did. Years ago, Dorian showed me a video of a bodybuilder who he came out and spoke about how he was abused as a child, and watching that video really helped me. And I've always thought I'm gonna share my story, for one, to unburden myself, two, hoping that even if it just reaches one person, then that would be something. Because the same way that guy's video helped me, then if I can help one person to not feel so alone, then that would be something. But I just never had the courage to do it. And I remember like a family friend telling me about her cousin who had also shared her story on Facebook. The cousin didn't know that she was a victim of sexual abuse, and then years later she saw that, or some period later she saw that her cousin had made a post on Facebook. And I always felt like I wanted to have the courage to do that, but at the same time I just didn't. And that's one of the things that I wanted to speak about, because what it is, what I've come to realize that in society, there's a lot of people who will come and they'll offer you support, which is good and which is what I received. But the people close to the situation tend to want to cover it up a lot of the times. Because I remember even after I made that post I did back in July, and I said to Dorian, it's funny because the support I've had is only from friends and people I've met on social media. There was not one of my family members that actually commented or made any public comment, even though they know full well what happened. And I remember at the time feeling really sad. And Dorian said something to me which made sense, because he said to me, well, everyone's got their own agenda and looking after their own well-being and their own reality. And he's like, it's easier for people who are not within the situation to comment, because obviously it doesn't mess up their day to day. Not that he's saying that friends who commented wouldn't have done so, but what he said to me, it made sense. And it's funny because a couple months prior I probably wouldn't have heard it, but I realized there's a lot of this unburdening and freedom that came from making that post, that I was able to actually look at things in a different light. So I can't remember if I said this before in the first couple of minutes I was speaking, but I remember just the Friday after I made the post, like I just spent the entire day crying. I was crying for a couple of days. Like there's a series of videos that I did, and I was just literally crying through every single one of them, and just feeling so much anger and wanting to just lash out at every single family member that's been so unkind to me. And I will still speak about what they did, but I realized that I'm actually doing okay now. They didn't help me, they didn't come to my rescue, and it would have been good if they did. But I think from the freedom that came from me just putting this thing out there has helped me to realize that I can start to self-heal. I don't know where to start. I think they always say just start at the beginning. It's a very good place to start. I'm sorry if I'm just kind of like mumbling a bit. Maybe I'm not that good at storytelling. Where do I start? So you know what? So growing up, my parents meant the world to me. I had them up on such a pedestal, and I always joke and say to everyone, I had them so high in a pedestal and they just dropped me down in the shits. I thought I had like the best relationship with my father. It makes me sad when I think about when I realized that the moments I had with him when I thought they were great moments were basically just him grooming me. And it's hard even saying it now. It's really hard because for the longest while I'll just blame myself, and I'll just think I was such a flipping idiot. Like, how did I not see this? How did I not know this? But I was 11 years old, and obviously the grooming would have started well before then. So I thought we were having this amazing father-daughter relationship, and yeah, it was a shit. So and I won't go into detail about what happened, because I don't think this is the right platform to share it, and I don't want to trigger anyone. And the thing is, I think obviously I won't go into detail, like I said, about what happened, because I don't think this is the right platform to do it, or it's just not something you really want to talk about anyway. But I think one of the things that I found the hardest is that I actually trusted this person, and I believed in him so much, and I just thought I had like this amazing dad. And like, I think one of the things I found the hardest over the years to kind of forgive myself of is, so on the day when it happened, I remember one of my cousins was having an argument with her dad. It was coming up. It was like Christmas time. It was around like early December. Sorry, in the third week of December, a few days before Christmas. And in Jamaica, there's a thing that everyone does on Christmas Eve called Grand Market, and us as kids, we'd go out from early during the day, and it's kind of like a massive day of celebration, and you go out, you eat, like there's like loads of fun activities for kids to do. And my cousin was asking her dad for some money to go out that day, and her dad was telling her no. And I remember that day thinking, I wish my cousin had a good relationship with her dad like I have with my dad. That was the last thought I had that day. Because I just thought it was so amazing. And that's one of the things that for years just made me feel like shit, because I just felt like I was so dumb. So all I kept thinking, I was so dumb, like, and I've had to like taking the time these days to be kind to myself and forgiving of myself and realizing I wasn't dumb. I was 11. Of course, you're meant to think that of your parents. I was 11 years old. But I remember speaking to my grandma about it, my mom's mom. So this happened when I was in Jamaica, and I remember speaking to my mom's mom about it. And she said to me, and I could see the anger because my grandmother was just the best. She was the absolute best. And she said to me, we lived in a small village, and she said to me, don't tell anyone because she knows what the locals are like, and somehow they're going to look down on me with shame. And she was right, because that's exactly what his family tried to do, and that's what they tried to push. So he has two sisters, one that lives here in the UK that's given me some support over the years, one that lives in Atlanta, which she was one of the main reasons why I did this post, just because of the nastiness and the lack of support. So his mom, his sister, his aunt, my grandaunt, they all knew what he did, and they know what he's like because he's done it, or he's tried to do it to quite a lot of family members. And I told them what he did, but still they went around telling everyone I'm lying. So me, an 11-year-old that's been sexually abused, it would have been good if they could have come to me and offered me some help and some support, because I don't feel like that's asking for too much. I feel like that's what decent people do, especially I was 11 years old. But instead, they decided to pick a side, and the side that they picked was that of the pedophile, the wrongdoer. This person, that's the side they picked. So it would have been one thing if they decided to just not do anything. It would have still been hurtful because obviously I was 11 years old, and even now I'm not 11 years old, and it's still hard to deal with. So it'd be one thing if they decided not to do anything, and I could think, you know what, I could do with some help here, guys. I'm really struggling. I could do with some support. But if they decided not to do anything, but the fact that they decided to act, and in acting, they chose the side of the pedophile, they gave him protection. So left me, the person who's suffering, and they gave him protection. And they went around telling everyone that I'm lying. So not only am I dealing with being sexually abused, I'm now dealing with feeling like shit, because nobody stops for 1 minute and think, how is this affecting this person? How is she coping? And because I'm not out there trying to jump off a ledge, everyone just thinks it doesn't matter, we'll just pile on and we'll pile on and we'll pile on. But we'll create a freedom and we'll create a safe space for this pedophile to live. This is someone who I have cousins. I have a cousin who's come to me and told me that she was so terrified of being abused by him that she would sleep with a knife in her bed next to her. And her mom knew this. And that's basically my grandaunt, my dad's aunt. They knew this. She was so terrified that she used to sleep with a knife in her bed around 15 years old because she was so scared he would crawl into her bed. She's also told me of another incident in which another cousin of hers, her parents weren't around, and somebody needed to stay with her for the night, like an older person, a guardian, aunt, uncle, whatever, needed to stay with her for the night to make sure she was okay. And he volunteered, the pedophile. And his aunts and uncles, everyone stood around knowing full well he's a pedophile and nobody was going to stop it. Knowing full well if he went to the house at night, he would have sexually abused my cousin. And there's one aunt who lives here in the UK that jumped in and said, no, not over my dead body. It's not going to happen. And the others would have stood back. I remember, it's funny because I remember when I told Dorian what happened to me, one of the questions he asked me was, are there no men in this family? And I said to him, there are more men in this family than anywhere else. And they all know what he's like. And they all know he's a pedophile. And they all know that he's tried to abuse their nieces and their daughters. But they all sit and they play domino with him. And they have a drink with him. And they have a laugh with him. And they carry on like nothing's happened. So, where am I in the story? If I kind of jump forward to what led me to finally kind of push me to do this post. For one, it was trying to hold on to my sanity because I just wasn't coping. For years, I would hope that someone would hypnotize me so I could just get this shit out of my head because I just couldn't sleep and I couldn't focus. Simple stuff like I had to train myself to be able to use the word dad. Like I speak to my mother-in-law often about it because sadly enough, she also got sexually abused as a child. And for years before I even got pregnant, I kept saying to her, I don't know how I'm going to be able to use the word dad without having any negative connotation towards it. And she just kept saying to me, okay, you need to try, you need to look at it in this way and the rest of it. And even after I had Cade, I realized I had literally had to just push myself into the moment and just start using the word and just making sure that I'm just constantly thinking of it and opening my eyes and checking and looking and making sure that's Dorian. Dorian's a good dad. He's a good person. It's okay to use this word dad. So it's been hard, and I'd go like once upon a time I couldn't even bring myself to even sorry, I got a phone call. My sister was calling me, and I think now I've completely lost my trail of thought. I don't even remember what I was saying. I think I was saying I watched the last 10 seconds of the where I left off, and I was saying my struggles that I had with using the word dad, and how I had to kind of like work my way through it, and just constantly just reminding myself that Cade's dad is Cade's dad, and Cade's dad's a positive person and a good person. And even with friends, I've had friends who had kids years ago before I had kids. Like one of my best friends, he had a daughter years ago, and I realized I used to always feel a certain level of discomfort with their relationship. And he's a good guy, and that he wasn't doing anything wrong. It's just obviously when you experience what I've experienced, and the person who's supposed to love you and look after you basically inflicts the worst kind of pain and trauma onto you, it's really hard, and it affects your life in terrible ways. And that's one of the things I've been working on recently, because I can see how a lot of my behaviors and my actions are as a result of just trying to cope with this trauma. And I think one of the things where I've been really unkind with myself is like what my counselor always used to say to me, because I've had a lot of counselling over the years to try and deal with it, and one of the things he always used to say to me is, but you were only a child. You were only a child. And I think that's one of the things I found hard, because I found it really hard to forgive myself. And I have to keep telling myself, but I was 11 years old. And even if I wasn't 11 years old, even if I was an adult and someone does this to you, and you're like, it's not your fault, and you didn't ask for it, and you didn't ask for this to be inflicted on you. And it's really hard to forgive yourself of this. And that's one of the things I've been working on. So, so where was I in the story? So for years, I think for years and years, I know one of the things I've always said is like, I used to feel like I'm just existing for the sake of existence. I felt hopeless. I didn't have any support. The only person that actually supported me when I told them was my grandmother. She was really good. I told my mom. Had no support from her whatsoever. I remember once writing her a letter and telling her how I felt, and she just literally ripped the letter up and threw it in my face. I remember when I first told her what happened to me, she was in her bedroom and she threw a pillow at me and told me to get out of the room. It happens to everyone. And I just cried because I felt so alone. When I spoke to, I remember telling one of my aunts, my mom's sister, and she basically said to me, in the Bible, it says, honor your mother and your father. I was in New York at the time when I told her, and she's like, in the Bible it says, honor your mother and your father is in the Bronx, you should go visit him. And I just remember I was on holiday, and I just wanted to hide, and I just wanted to just get on the first plane back to London. And so for years, not having any support, you start to feel like shit, and you feel like you deserve this, and you feel like your life is not important, and you feel like it doesn't matter to anybody if you were to one day get up and decide that life isn't worth living anymore. And for years I've just always tried to fight. Like I remember my counselor saying to me that I always use this word fight all the time, and that's because that's how I've always felt. Like I have to fight for my sanity. I have to fight to feel like I belong. I have to fight to feel like I'm someone. And I'm slowly realizing that I can let go of that fight. And a lot of that has come from me making the post that I did back in July. And it's funny because I didn't realize the freedom and just the ability to breathe that would be able to come from just making that post. And like I said earlier, if I had, then I would have done it years ago. But obviously you don't know what you know until you do it, and it takes a lot of courage and just a lot of like being able to shake off all the shit stuff to be able to say it out loud, because it's easier to pretend because you're so worried that everyone's going to judge you. and thinking this is you and it's your fault, or make you feel less than a human being, especially when you've had no support from the family and they've made you to feel less than a human being, then you start to think that's what everyone's going to think. So for years I've really struggled with just being able to cope and to deal with it. I've had counseling quite a few times. I started counseling again during lockdown, and that's really helped. So one of the reasons why I started counseling during lockdown, so years ago when I first had counseling, one of the things a counselor used to always say to me is that you're in the present, you're safe, it's in the past, he can't hurt you. And that's what I had to keep reminding myself a lot of times. And I thought at one point I'd built up the courage to be able to deal with it. I even back in 2014, we went to Jamaica, me, my husband, and his mom and stepdad. And I'd said to him I was going to confront him because I thought I would have been able. I thought I had the strength to confront him. And we have to drive past his house to get to my granddad's house. And as we were approaching where his house is, I just started to panic, and I closed the windows and I locked the door. Even though I'm in the car and the car's moving, I was just panicking. And I just said to Dorian, just keep driving. I just wanted him to drive. Like, I just couldn't breathe. I just held my head straight. I couldn't look out. I saw like my grandmother's friends and stuff that I'd want to say hello to. I couldn't say hello to any of them because I just couldn't breathe. And because prior to that, I'd gone to Jamaica a few years prior to that when my grandma had passed away. And for me, I had like such a panic like going there because I'd ruptured my Achilles tendon back then as well. And I knew what would happen in Jamaica when there's a funeral. There's like a long celebration for about 2 weeks. And I knew he would turn up at the house, and I knew no one would challenge him, and he would be there because obviously everyone's giving him freedom to roam around. And I remember sitting in my grandmother's room looking at him outside playing dominoes, and everyone sitting there around the table laughing and joking, and he just had this free life. And I hid in my grandmother's room and I cried for the whole night. I remember crying so much that the day of the funeral I couldn't speak because I just cried for the whole night, and it was awful. So for years that's what I've had to be dealing with. But I've tried my best to claw my way into some sort of like existence. That's one of the things I used to say for years, is that I'm just existing purely for existence. That's all I kept saying. And I kept saying, one day I'm going to find my family, I'm going to find my own family, and they're going to love me the way in which I've loved them. So where was I? So I'm there and I'm trying to pick up the pieces and trying to exist as best as I possibly can. And then during the lockdown period, I was at home, and bearing in mind, home is supposed to be my safe space. That's what the council always reminds me. So whenever I feel shit, I would just say to myself, you're in the present, you can't harm you, that's in the past. And I got a WhatsApp message from someone. I didn't know who it was because I didn't have the person's name saved. But when I read it, I realized it was a family member. So I figured it was one of my aunts. But I wasn't sure because the picture didn't look like her photo. The WhatsApp photo didn't look like her. I wasn't sure because she's quite big, and the WhatsApp photo was someone who's quite slim. But I now realized it was an old photo. And within the message, she wrote to me and said to me, "Dad's dying," as in my dad, "and I should pray for him, and it's only the mercy of God that's keeping him alive." So this is his side of the family who's gone around telling everyone that I'm lying. She's now found me in my safe space and sent me a message asking me to pray for the pedophile. So me, the victim of abuse, my life is so insignificant that I should pray for this man. And then when I contacted her, she lied and said she didn't know that he'd done it to me, even though she does know because I told her and I remember telling her. And she knows about my cousins, and without giving anyone away, because I don't feel as if that would be the right thing to do, because some of my cousins has confided in me and I've not asked them permission if I can mention them in the story. But she knows because there are people close enough to her that felt scared of what he could potentially do to them. And I confronted her. She kept doubling down and said she didn't know. And then she said to me, "Oh, I should go back and reread the message because what she did say to me, she wasn't asking me to pray for him, and she wasn't trying to tell me about it. She was sending the message to me for me to pass it on to my sister." So I said to her, "But then your story doesn't hold up because if you're telling me that you didn't know, and you keep insisting that you didn't know, then why would you then not send a message to tell me? Because as far as you're aware, based on your story, you're saying he's my dad. You don't know that he sexually abused me. So why would you not want to tell me then? Why would you then just be sending the message to my sister? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm saying it now, that's not how I was saying it to her. I was angry, I was pissed off. I didn't even care. Like, I was swearing, I was angry because I remember at the time thinking, we're in lockdown, people are losing family members daily, people are losing their minds because we're not allowed to leave our house. We're stripped off from all the things that used to kind of keep us sane. And I'm here with my son, Cade was like about 18 months at the time, holding it together. And you're going to call me up and ask me to pray for this man, not giving one shit about the fact that this could be the final straw that pushes me over the edge. Nothing for 1 second. Not thinking for 1 second about how this could impact on me. Sorry, I had to take a break for a minute. Not thinking for 1 second about how this could impact on me. Not giving a crap about my mental health and my well-being. Not thinking for 1 second about my son, who was 18 months at the time, that her message that she sent to me and then the subsequent phone call could have been the last straw. That could have pushed me to breaking point. And everyone knows with moms it's already difficult, especially in the early years when you're lack of sleep, when you're sleep deprived, when you've got a baby who's hungry and crying or whatever it is. And it's hard enough without all of these external issues. But then, what if in that moment when she called me, that was the last straw, and all it took was for Cade to have woken up from his nap too early and been a bit grumpy, or him not being well that day and being a bit grumpy or whatever, and I just snap. And then everything is taken out on him, and then that's it. No one ever stopped for 1 minute to think, is this too much for one person to bear? So that happened. And I remember at the time, because Dorian wasn't home, and I remember taking a screenshot of the message that she sent me and sending it to him. And then I deleted her, I hung up the phone, I deleted her, and I blocked her. But then I went back and I read the message I'd sent to Dorian, and it made me even more angry because I realized that she's now, so I realized that she's now coming to me, asking me. I think it started to sink in again because he's very religious, and so she's now asking me to pray for him. So I'm thinking, so this is what you think. You're now so forgiving of this paedophile. You're asking the person who is sexually abused to pray for him. And this is how insignificant my life is. And I sent her back a voice note, and I'm not going to pretend like it was beautiful. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't say exactly how I felt and I used some very colorful language, because that's what I wanted to do, because that's how I felt. And that's, for me, I don't see why I shouldn't even have to explain where my anger came from or why I felt that angry, because you're asking the victim of sexual abuse to pray for the abuser. And somehow it became all about her. And she rang up all my aunts and my mom's sisters, saying to them that I was rude and I sent a very nasty message. And the reason why I intentionally sent a voice note is because I knew she would go around telling everyone what I said, and I wanted there to be no ambiguity. I said what I said because that's how I felt. But somehow she became more of a victim than me. Me swearing at her was more painful and more unkind than her ringing me up in the safety of my home and messaging me in the safety of my home to ask me to pray for the man who sexually abused me. My actions somehow were more unkind. And then for my family members, my dad's side of the family, if that wasn't enough, them going around and telling lies that I lied about being sexually abused, the aunt who contacted me subsequently passed away about 2 or 3 weeks later, from what I believe was COVID and a combination of a heart attack. And then everyone went around saying it was me. It was as a result of the phone call with me why she died. So I was in my own home, minding my own business, trying to get on with my life, trying to piece my life together, trying to not let the trauma that I endured from being sexually abused at 11 years old. I was in my own business where she contacted me. So for starters, if you contact someone and they speak to you in a certain manner, especially on the topic that we're talking about, and if you collapse on the phone, that would be your doing because you made that phone call, you made that choice. But also, this was 3 weeks after the event. So somehow, again, if it's not enough that I've been sexually abused, if it's not enough that they've gone around telling people I'm lying, they're also now adding on to that, oh, I'm now somehow a murderer. And it's actually laughable, and I can laugh about it now, and this has only come as a result of me working on myself and trying to heal. But believe me, back then it was so painful, and I literally had to claw my way back to civilization. And once again, because obviously I wasn't out there and I wasn't harming myself, everyone just thinks, you know what, let's just take a pound of flesh and a pound of flesh and a pound of flesh, all in the name of protecting their paedophile brother and their paedophile son and their paedophile nephew. Um, I've had to move into the living room because my phone battery was dying. So yeah, so what was I saying? Yeah, so that was that. So basically, his family is now going around telling everyone that not only did I lie about being sexually abused by him, I now also somehow was responsible for this aunt dying. Um, uh, and for me, I can't even. It took me months to actually just be able to get over it. Not even, I say get over it, not to. It took me months on working on my mental health and well-being. So bearing in mind that, because I think naturally I'm quite an emotional person, and I think what's happened to me has made me even more emotional, because when you've lived your life feeling like you don't matter to anyone and you're less than, there's so much insecurity that lives within you, because it's just how do you explain being abused at 11 years old and this matters to nobody? So sometimes you may see me and I'm laughing and I might share stories and stuff like that, but it's all just a coping mechanism. It's always constantly trying to live outside the reality of what my reality is. And I'm always on the move. And I always used to say to everyone, I just don't know how to relax. And like I'm always thinking, and I always have like 50 different plans in my head, and I'll have plan A to Z, and I'm always making sure I'm on top of things. And I can never work out whether or not that's because that's how I naturally am as a person, or is it because it's come as a result of not wanting to relax? Because when I relax, then the thoughts that I don't want to think about will come into my head. So that's where we were with that. If we fast forward now to 2024, this summer, a family friend was getting married, and some of our family members were coming over to the UK for the wedding. One of them being his sister. So years ago, when I was getting married, that sister called me up. So my aunt, his sister, called me up because it was a big issue, and she called me up and she was talking to me. It was a big issue to do with my mom, but that's a different story. So she called me up and she was talking to me about the wedding, and then she started to talk about. She got into the topic like asking questions around what happened to me, and for the first time ever, I felt like I was able to, well, not for the first time, I did speak to the aunt that I just mentioned, the one who passed away, and another aunt about what happened to me. So she was probably like the third family member within his family that I was telling what happened to me. So she called me up, and I literally broke down on the phone telling her what happened to me. And I remember her saying to me, "Oh, Nisi, my heart is bleeding. My heart's bleeding. I can't believe I was in Jamaica, and I wasn't close enough to protect you. And I can't believe you went through all of this, and my heart's bleeding." And I literally cried my eyes out on the phone, because I was thinking for the first time I actually felt like I had some support. So prior to this, the only support I really had was when I'd spoken to my grandma, obviously. I'd spoken to my ex about it, from my previous relationship years ago. He was really supportive, and his mom was really supportive. But for my immediate family, this was the first time, apart from my grandma's, I actually felt like I was getting support. And I literally, I broke down in tears. Because when you've just gone for so long, just feeling useless and not valued to anyone. So to hear that someone actually supports you and believe you, it was just overwhelming. I was so emotionally like broken and so raw that I actually stayed home from work for a whole week because I just couldn't face the reality of anything. And I remember I sat by the phone every day after I spoke to her. I sat by the phone waiting for her to call me just to check in, just to see how I was, because I believed her and I thought she cared. And I sat by the phone and I waited, but she never called and she never checked in. And then a couple months later, I saw her making a post on Facebook with a picture with her. I think she was even sitting next to my dad, or she had her arms around him, saying, "Oh, happy birthday to our amazing brother, and basically selling this pedophile to the world like he's a good person. Remember, she said to me her heart was bleeding. So anyway, fast forward to 2014, like I think it was about June time. I was at home again in the safety of what's my home, and I got a phone call, and it was a three-way phone call from my aunt via one of my cousins. And I picked up, and she's like, "Hey, Nisi, I'm coming to London. What's your shoe size?" I remember sitting there thinking, "You've got to be effing kidding me." So not only did you tell me that your heart was bleeding and you would have protected me, but then you just left and didn't give a shit. You've also gone around telling everyone that I lied, and you've also gone around telling people that I'm responsible for the aunt's death. And now you're gonna call me up and ask me what's my shoe size because, excuse me, that's what it is. I have no value, I have no feelings, and I can be bought by a pair of shoes. And then asking asking about my son as well, the son that I've had to kind of just hold my life together to be able to look after him, despite constantly being flipping made to feel like I am not even a human being that's worth living by you and the rest of the family. So I got really annoyed, put the phone down, sent her a few messages because I was angry and I was pissed off, and I don't feel the need to explain why I was angry and I was pissed off because I'm a human being. And I sent her a message saying, you know what, something along the lines like, she knows what he's done, but she hasn't stopped for 1 minute to think how her actions impact on me, and she hasn't stopped for 1 minute to think how her actions could potentially impact on Cade via me. And she sent me back a response saying, all I know is I'm not the one that you're going to kill. Meaning, she's now highlighting to me, and she's saying it, that I've already somehow, through me standing up for myself, caused the death of the other aunt. So me standing up for myself this time, I'm not going to cause her death. That's the message I got. So not only is she going around, not only am I dealing with abuse, not only am I dealing with them saying that I'm lying, I'm now dealing with her telling me to my face that, yeah, basically through my actions I've caused someone else's death. So that's the shit that they put on me all the time. So that was at the back of my head, and one night I came home and it was just too much, and I was crying. I thought, no, I didn't even stop for 1 minute to think. I just wrote the post. Dorian was in his office. I was gonna ask him to check it to see if it's okay, because you always doubt yourself and you always feel like shit and you feel like you have to live by these codes. And then that night I thought, you know what, I'm not even gonna do that. I'm just gonna post it, because if I don't do it, it's never gonna happen. And I'm conscious of the fact that I've been talking for a long time and I don't even know how long I have to make, if I can share this entire video. But in the aftermath, what came with after me making the post is that I got phone calls from when I say my family, my mom's side of the family. And I remember one of my aunt calling me up saying to me she's seen the post, but she can't make any comments on it because she doesn't want to upset the Mullings side of the family. And, you know, once upon a time, that would have hurt and it would have made me so angry. And I'm not going to say it's not disappointing and that it doesn't hurt. But I remember speaking to Dorian about it, and one of the things he said was true. And I was surprised that I was able to hear that and understand it without just feeling just so broken. And the reason why I was able to hear that, I realized that it was the freedom that came from making that post. And I was very conscious, even the weeks after, the days after I'd made the post, I kept thinking, this feeling of freedom, I'm hoping I'm not lowering myself into a false sense of reality, because I'm able to not be so angry anymore and not be so feeling so just broken. It's like so much had been lifted off me from making that post. So back to what Dorian said to me. He said, what did he say? So I said to him, oh yeah, my aunt's called me up to say she's really sorry, and she's sorry that this has happened to me. And she kept saying it, and she kept saying it over and over again, and she kept saying, oh, this is the reason why people who go through domestic abuse and sexual abuse and rape, that's the reason why they don't speak up, because nobody supports them. And I'm thinking, but the thing that you're saying is the thing that you're doing, and I don't know if you want to kind of like just alleviate the guilty feelings you're feeling, but I kept telling her, okay, fine, you don't have to speak up, but you're a part of the problem. But anyway, something that Dorian said made sense, and he basically what he said to me was, everyone has their own their own interest. and everyone's going to protect their own bubble and their own circle. And so I said to him, it's really sad because I've had so much support from friends and from people I know via social media, and I haven't had that from my family. And he's what did he say? He said something along the lines of they're not close enough to the situation. Not that he's saying that everyone's support wasn't real; it was all real. But the people close to the situation, they're always going to be thinking about their own interest. Um, and as much as it's painful, what he said was true. And I'm not saying, okay, yeah, this is the way it should be. But at the same time, I think what's come as a result, what's come as a result of me, I don't know if that was recorded, my alarm was going off. Sorry, so everyone's got their own interest and everyone's protecting their own bubble. And it is painful and it's sad that it's like that. And that's how society is in a lot of ways. Um, but as a result of making the post, this helped me to realize that, you know what, I think, like I keep saying, it's I don't know how to put it into words exactly, but it's like I'm no longer hiding and I'm no longer feeling unworthy, especially with all the support I had from everyone. So that support that I've received and me letting go and not allowing myself to be the victim and feeling like I have some shame and I don't belong and I'm less than, because that's been lifted by making that post. It's like I don't hold on so much to the anger of feeling like I need this support, because I now see that, okay, I may not get support from my family, but there's hundreds of thousands of people out there that will support you. And I think one of the things I used to struggle with all the time, I used to think the world is such a bad place, and I realized people do shit things, but there are people out there that also do really good things. But yeah, so and another thing that's happened after making that post, his grandaunt, no, my grandaunt, which is his aunt, then contacted one of my other aunts and said to her, um, she's not happy that I mentioned his name. And then she also tried to deny it, tried to say it wasn't true. So I didn't witness this conversation. This is just a conversation that my aunt relayed back to me. Apparently, my aunt then said to her, when she said that it's not true, my aunt then said to her, but there are other members of the family, and there are cousins who've come to me, as in me, Latoya, or Toya as everyone calls me, and have told me their stories. So it's hard for her to say it's not true when there's been so many people out there that's spoken up about it. And his grandaunt did not deny it. She didn't say yes, she didn't say no, because she knew it was true. But then she also went on further to say that she wasn't happy with me mentioning his name. So she can't deny that it happened, but now she's then once again asking me that I shouldn't have mentioned his name, that Livingston Walker is a paedophile, that Livingston Walker sexually abused me. That's once again what they're coming to ask of me. And then also to say, why didn't my grandmother at the time raise the issue with them? Which really pissed me off, because my grandmother is the world to me. So for them to even mention my grandmother's name when she was the only support, and she's the only reason why I'm probably alive today, because she's the only support I had for most of the time. Um, uh, I kept thinking, I said to my aunt, I said, you know what? I said, the one thing I would say to you is that you as a family, my mom's side of the family, need to realize you've given his side of the family, my dad's side of the family, so much comfort that they can come to you, and rather than actually realizing that their nephew and their brother sexually abused me, they have so much comfort that they can come to you and raise these questions. And I said, that's something for you to look at, not for me. But also, the fact that with my grandmother, what my grandmother said to me, and I understand why she said it, because obviously she was trying to protect me as best as she could. But the mere fact that his entire family has gone around saying I'm lying shows that exactly what my grandmother feared is exactly what would have happened. So I feel like I've left out a lot of the story, but I can't, like, I've taken a break so many times. Um, but though I think I've kind of just circled back to the reason why I made this video. And it's funny because my sister called me halfway through when I was recording the video. I think I mentioned it earlier, and she was asking me, am I sure I want to make this video? And I kept saying to her, yes, I am, because I do want to make it. And it's not out of being nasty. I think she was probably worried that I'm going to be venting and swearing, which I've done in the past when his family members have contacted me, and I don't have any regrets about doing that. But I realize I've healed a lot, so I don't need to deliver my message in that way. But the reason why I want to put it out there is because I'm hoping even if one, well, ideally it would have been good if no one else goes through the shit I've gone through. But unfortunately, we live in a world where this shit is going to happen all the time. So I'm hoping if you're watching this and you've been a victim of abuse, and I know a lot of people watching it will be, because I've spoken to quite a few people who I am friends with who's been in this situation. Because sadly, once upon a time, I used to think I'm in the minority, and I'm realizing more and more that this shit happens all the time. And it's disgusting. And one of the reasons why people are constantly getting away with it is because of examples like his side of the family who protect him and cover it up because nobody wants to deal with the dirty truth. So they give him freedom, and you in doing so, you're giving a pedophile freedom. So every person that this person abuses after, that's on your shoulders, because you know he's a pedophile. You've created a reality in which he's not a pedophile. You've sold it onto unknowing members of the public that he's a good person, and those people can develop the trust in him, and then before you know it, he's also abused one of their kids. So this is also for every person that's been abused, every person that's protecting the abuser, it's on you. And I just want to say, for anyone out there who's been abused, I'm hoping one day you'll be able to share your story as well, and I'm hoping you'll be able to get the freedom from it that I am finally starting to find. I can't say to you that it will ever go away, because I don't think it can, because it's buried in your memories. But how you react to it and how you deal with it, and the blame and the just you feeling ashamed and feeling like you've let yourself down, a lot of that will start to disappear, or will gradually ease by you just being able to no longer make yourself a victim of this situation. So if sadly this has happened to you, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. If you feel like you don't have the support from your family and you want to talk to someone, I'm here. And yeah, I just want to say thanks to every single person that reached out to me. You have no idea. It was just like, when you've gone for so long feeling undeserving, and to get that amount of support. So I don't even think I responded back to 95% of the people that reached out to me, because I just couldn't deal with it at the time. So if I didn't respond to you, please don't think it's because I didn't want to. It's just because I just didn't even know how to deal with everything I was feeling. But I just wanted to say thank you for your support. Thank you for reaching out to me. Thank you for making me feel worthy. Thank you for making me feel valued. Thank you for just sending a message that for you might be a small thing, but for me, it was just everything. So thank you.